he said, hey, like I love watching your videos, but whenever you post videos that are so technical, I suddenly feel like your channel is not for me. Like you're not making content for people like me. And I took this to heart. For years, we tried everything. Like we cracked our heads at trying to fix this churn problem. The real problem was this is not a sticky product.
Hello, this episode of Misfit Founders is brought to you in partnership with Paddle. Paddle is a payments infrastructure platform for over 4,000 software companies. They manage billing, tax, subscriptions, pricing, retention, and also fraud, so you don't have to. So if you're a SaaS or software founder, check out the link in the description. Might be useful. Now, back to the episode. So you said you stumbled on YouTube on creating content?
I stumbled on creating content, and when you're a founder, you sort of have to do a little bit of everything. You have to do what the company needs you to do, right? Especially as CEO. So it's like, like, do you need me to be a marketer or a salesperson today? Fine, I'll do that. So I sort of I've been wearing this marketing hat since the very beginning. Even though I also like product building. My two co-founders are product people, so okay, somebody has to own marketing. I'll take that. Stumbled upon YouTube, which, funny enough, is is closer to what I studied. So I studied digital animation in college, and it was clear to me that I didn't want to be a digital animator. Like as a digital animator, you're like this tiny cog in this huge machine. And after being a founder for a while, that's not interesting enough. So like it's so much closely aligns to what I enjoy doing, that I start to feel kind of that pull into the content creation side. I'm certainly feeling it now as the channel is growing and as we sort of redefine the way we make content and all that. I don't want to stop being an entrepreneur, like a product person. Like I think that products impact more people. And can impact people more deeply than content. So I'm literally like in the middle of this tough decision.
You know what?
Which one to pick.
I can relate to that so much because I'm in the same situation right now. I started as a founder, a SaaS business founder. I started doing content because I wanted to share some of my knowledge, and I sold my business late last year. And I'm doubling down on the content bit, and I'm starting to get comfortable with me potentially not doing product, at least for a while. But I'm still having that battle. I still like product. Maybe I have a bit of fatigue of SaaS and so on, at least for now. But yeah, I'm in the same boat. I don't know. I'm leaning more towards content, but I will never fully give up SaaS and product, being a product founder.
I also think that my talk at SaaS Talk tomorrow is precisely on this, because I think that marketing has gotten so much harder now with retargeting essentially got ruined by Apple. Content, or at least written content, is now very competitive, and you don't necessarily win because you have higher quality content. You win thanks to a better use of GPT in part. So like those content angles are getting much more competitive, and a lot of companies are looking to video as their content output, video or podcasts and video. I do think that video sort of creates this extra layer of connection with people. Like you sit down to watch someone, and it's a face that you recognize, whereas you sort of, or at least I listen to podcasts, on like as a second task or like a side thing. Like I'm listening while I'm doing something else. So there's a lot more intention in video. That's why I prefer it. It's what I studied for. But so I think that in SaaS there are a lot of opportunities to leverage content. So I don't want to completely disconnect myself from the SaaS world, because I think that there are TBD opportunities there. So yeah.
And also, do you feel like, or are concerned that if you completely detach, it will make your life as a content creator more difficult because you're not attached to this thing that you constantly talk about in your content?
That's definitely a fact. Also, I think in our case, our secret sauce with content was we figured out a way for a company to create content that people enjoy or think of as a content creator, right? So kind of like the journey of our, I mean, our content has been less about selling Slidebean in the last year or so. But you still hear that story of, hey, like I ran into you. I thought Slidebean was just your nickname or the name of your channel. And then after 6 months of watching your videos, I figured that you actually run a company that's called Slidebean. But the fact that they discovered and they think of me as just this YouTuber guy, I think like lowers their resistance or lowers this barrier, saying, "Oh, it's corporate content," because it's like it's very human content, and I think that's something that companies have a very hard time figuring out, how to make content that doesn't look like a company made it.
Yeah, exactly. And I could list the amount of YouTube influencers that, or either hires or founders of companies, of SaaS companies that actually I learn about. Like for example, with you, I was doing research on how to do a pitch because we wanted to get seed investment. Like, how do I put together a pitch? And I found your videos, and this is in second half of 2019. And really quickly, I figured out that you have a service called Slidebean. So I went there, created an account, started putting together the slides. So I was basically applying what you were teaching on your YouTube videos into Slidebean. There were others. I think there was some stuff with Elgato. There's a lot of tech companies that do this, like use either independent influencers or they have hires. And a lot of the stuff that I learn from YouTube nowadays when it comes to filmmaking and this and that. And a lot of the people that I consume products from are influencers that promote these products.
Yeah, and it feels, again, when it's natural and not corporate. I think people are after that content anyway. Like people are after learning to do stuff on YouTube anyway. But it's so hard, man, because I think there's this balance that companies struggle with, where if the content is paid for by the company, right? Just because it's a company that's hiring it, it's more expensive, right? So as a creator or as a production company, you charge this company more because it's a company and you know that they can afford it. So in itself, that already creates a layer of corporateness, right? Where the production company needs to deliver a product that is a certain quality or more, where it's going to go through revisions and people are going to vet it or ask for changes. So the production company needs to create content that's very well done, where the shot is not out of focus or like silly things like that. And then the company, since they paid so much money for this, they also want their brand to be very, very visible.
Yeah.
So like somewhere in that cycle, you end up with a corporate video.
You do, yeah. Very true. And the cycle of, like you said, the cycle of releasing stuff becomes larger. It's challenging, I would say, unless the influencer is the founder, the CMO, like leadership placed individuals that have a lot more freedom to post things. I think that's a different kind of dynamic in a sense, and it might not feel that corporate if you're coming from this YouTube social media world.
Yeah, so in those cases, you have kind of like the breakouts where there's no supervision. The founder is the only supervision, or like some authority in the company is playing that card or fulfilling that role, doing it themselves in-house, like that works better, and I've seen it work very successfully.
I don't know if you had this, and actually before I get in, because I feel I'm getting heated with the conversation here. Jana, give me the elevator pitch of Slidebean.
Sure. That has changed a lot, and it's changed a lot over the years. But
I think you are, when I was thinking of this question, I was trying to figure out whether someone else you're the 12th guest so far, if someone else would have had this, I wouldn't say challenge, but this complex answer to this question. Because I know this a bit about the story with Slidebean and the fact that you kind of reinvented and repositioned quite a bit. So yeah, go ahead, give it a crack.
the elevator pitch, we had to refigure it out. But officially, what we do is we help founders pitch to investors. That comes with a lot of aspects. It started with the pitch deck for us, right? So we started helping them with the pitch deck and the storytelling through a SaaS, right? Through a self-service, some form of AI-powered SaaS platform that just helped them design better presentations. But quickly we had to iterate that because it wasn't, the TAM for that is rather small. So we've been iterating that, or like, well, now that we have this captive audience, how do we expand on that? So now we do a little bit more. So we extended that into services. So we have like an agency department that helps, that actually someone helps the founders with the pitch deck, and we have some analysts and stuff. And more recently, we started helping them with the budgeting part. The fancy name for that is a financial model, but nobody calls it that because when you're starting a business, you just need to estimate when your runway is gonna, how much runway you have left, or you have to run projections for your investors. So that's where we stumbled upon that necessity while we were working on the pitch deck, because a lot of founders hadn't figured it out.
Yeah, and you also started another business, which was, if I remember correctly, which was around managing your
So
your SaaS tooling.
So we've been around for you remember this? That's some good. That's some good. I don't think it's on my LinkedIn anymore.
You know what? The thing is, I dislike this. I dislike when I know much about the founder, because, and I was talking to someone the other day. I met someone last week that was coming to SaaS Talk, and I posted who wants to be on the podcast, and it was like, I'm a good host. Knew nothing about them, and I prefer not to know much about, because then the conversation, the questions that I ask are more discovery questions, because a lot of the audience might not know who that person is and want to learn about their journey and their challenges and so on. So you're an exception.
So the story for there, I think the takeaway for people listening or watching is, at some point we realized that the product that we had built had too small of a market, right? It wasn't going to grow after a certain ARR. So what do we do with what we have? We could sell it, right, and start anew, but we already have this huge audience, and whoever buys this thing will want the audience. So if we want to do something else, we have to start from scratch on the audience building, and the audience has gotten bigger and bigger. So maybe 5 years ago, which this is more or less in sync with when we figured out YouTube as a channel. We figured, hey, why don't we have like a tiny R&D sub-department in the company? Tiny, like we're not that big of a business. Tiny is some of our engineers and product team's time working on some little product ideas to see what happens. One of them was this product called Recurring, which was a SaaS, like a SaaS management tool. I think it was a good idea. I think we came up with that idea at the right time. But the problem was at the same time, like 4 or 5 companies raised good venture capital to solve the same problem. Right. So I think we were on the spot on the problem. Our approach, coming as just honestly like a side project of another company, kind of like for our same customer, but as a side project in the end, we were not going to compete. We're going to be outcompeted just on the amount of time and dedication to that. So we quickly shut it down.
What was quickly? Because I know the launch, because you've done this. It was a really cool video. That's why I remember it. I really like the video that you made.
We made this awesome commercial.
Yeah.
The story about the commercial is there's this company called Sandwich Video, which I'm a big fan of. They're a like an ad agency.
Drink some water.
No, I'm good. I have my coffee here.
Oh,
I did.
just that. Yeah, carry on.
So there's this company called Sandwich Video. They make fantastic commercials for startups. That's kind of their gig, or for like venture-backed companies. So they've made an ad for Slack. They made an ad for this script, which is this great editing software for podcasts. And they have like this style that I really like. Fantastic example of ads. So when we were going to launch recurring, we had some money in the bank. We had been profitable, so we had been saving up, and we're like, hey, if we're going to build this product, let's launch it the right way. And I had one of the most humiliating calls of my life as I became a lead of Sandwich Video, and I actually emailed them and, hey, like we want to do this commercial. I'm wondering, like, I'd love, I want you guys to produce it, blah blah. And yeah, I get on the phone with them, and they're like, yeah, great. So what's your budget for the ad? I'm like, oh, we have a budget for this ad. We're thinking like 50, 70K, something like that, is what we're willing to pay. And they're like, well, I mean, our starting budget is 250. What? So
like when you said 50, 70, my mind was like, that is a lot of money. A lot of those.
Exactly. I'm like 50, like, yeah. I'm like, I don't want to. That was really our budget. No way we could pay 250K for an ad. And they're like, yeah, like our starting budget for a basic ad is like 250K.
Well, I mean, if they work with companies like Slack and big names, like, okay, fine, these companies have infinite budgets.
But the whole story of the call is like I spoke for like 5 minutes on like how big of a fan I was, been meaning to work for them for years, and I finally had saved up some money to pay for an ad. I was so humiliated. We hung up, and then I'm like, well, okay, well that sucked, but now we have to come up with a video as good as they would have made. Now that we're clearly not spending the 250. So we came up with this really, really cool concept. One of my favorite production projects we've done. So that was fun.
So you've done it in-house?
Yeah, we did in-house. I directed it.
Okay. Because it was really nicely made. Like I really enjoyed that.
Thanks.
You know, when you were telling the story about this agency, I was because I knew the quality and the creative bit of it, I was like, okay, so they took your project for less, and so on. So that's a testament of the quality of the video, to be honest.
The video is fun. Like I guess we'll link it or something. It's somewhere on YouTube.
Do you still have it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I wrote the script. I came up with the script one day in the shower, literally. And this doesn't happen to me often, but sometimes I come up with good stuff like when when I'm going to bed or in the shower, and I have to like step out and write it down because otherwise I'll forget.
Yeah.
So came up with an idea there. It was very much my intention to hire a director for it. Like I had some imposter syndrome. I was like, I can't direct this. I need somebody else. But in the end, the production team, our team on YouTube, were like, yeah, like you have the idea in your head. I made like a visual storyboard and everything. So we didn't really need a director. We did hire an external DP, and there was a lot of production around it. It ended up costing, I think, like 15K. So it wasn't an expensive ad. Yeah. Well, that was for recurring, which
your CFO probably thanked you. It's like, oh, thank God you didn't spend 70K.
Man, we don't have a CFO. I'm our own CFO. Right. So, yeah.
Well, how big is your team now?
We're like 25 people
25
now.
people.
We've been as many as 30, almost 40 people at some point. But yeah, we had to shrink the team about a couple of years ago. Yeah.
And I have a question that I've kind of wondered myself and been through. So you're the face of your YouTube channel, and when you create the content that you made, like what was it, SaaS forensics and everything else, are these projects your brainchild children?
Yeah, For the most part, I think they are. Um,
Right. How the where I'm leading with this is, how do you work with your content team and your marketing team? Because it can be, as a founder, going and doing your own bit here. How does that tie into your marketing team KPIs, ROIs, and this? Or are you a rogue operator here doing stuff, and the marketing team is all separate, or
Yeah.
does it interlock somehow?
That's a great question. Great question. And I
It's
think
because I've experienced this with my team, where I would start a project and my marketing team will roll their eyes. Oh my God, how are we going to track this?
no, I think it's a good question, especially for companies that are trying to get into content. Because yeah, so our YouTube channel started very much as a marketing team branch, or like not a branch that even it's like, hey, the marketing team, we should produce video, we should get into video. Gustavo, who's our head of marketing, was very much into this idea of kind of like extending our tech content into video content. So great, we're all lined up. And all the videos that we were making were very directly around startups, how to build a pitch deck, how does a convertible note work. So it was very obviously speaking to our audience.
Yeah.
There was a point when in the shower I came up with this idea. It's like, hey, like, what if we make content that is a little bit broader, right? Not so niche. And we came up with this series, Company Forensics. This was around the time when WeWork was going bust, and I was reading a lot about WeWork. I mean, not going bust; they're still around, but around their IPO, when people discovered that WeWork was not what it was. So hey, like I care about this story as a founder. It's a startup story. I think we should talk about it. But it's not the startups 101 stuff that we were doing. It's not like teaching founders. It's like, hey, collecting this story, right? So we called it startup forensics at first, then we changed it to company forensics. But it's like this broader approach, and that worked. We started making these stories, kind of collecting these startup stories, and started making content around that, and it worked. Like, it got us into a much broader reach. Now at that point, we had been struggling with this. Do we put ads on? Do we activate ads on YouTube? Right? Because we don't want ads on our videos because they're already selling you something, right? So why would we let anybody advertise in front of that? But at the same time, we could. I mean, we're getting millions of views, so we could just put ads in there. It shouldn't be a problem. Started doing that, and that was around the time Skillshare emailed us, and they're like, hey, like, we want to sponsor a video. And like, do we take a Skillshare sponsorship for a video? At that point, like, we were new to YouTube. And like, hey, like, there is some prestige to like being sponsored by Skillshare.
Yeah,
They pick some really cool channels usually. So, I can't say no to that. Okay, fine. Let's do a Skillshare video. So at that point, like, the media team started operating as a branch of the company that actually made money. No, it didn't make money. I mean, it wasn't profitable in itself, but it generated some revenue on its own. And that's what the interests of the media team sort of became not the same as the interests of the marketing team. The marketing team wants sales and leads. The media team is testing what this is, testing where this goes, testing where content goes. And the media team wants views, not necessarily leads, right?
Does your media team sit under the marketing team, or is it part of the marketing team?
So for the longest time, not for the longest time, for the last year or so, we decided that we were going to entertain this idea. What if the media team is a separate thing, completely separate, a division of the company, media, and we want to test our capacity to build a media company around it, just based on our capacity to make good content. So that's kind of working. Like, we've gotten better at video. Again, since the main interest of the media team is views, then we're not bound by the type of content that Slidebean marketing wants to make. We're bound by what content is going to have a bigger reach, right? So it's a different.
We, as in, like, I'm part of the media team.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely part of the media team.
Not marketing, not this.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely part of the media team. And it's a different interest, and that has worked for us as the media team to kind of test the waters in this world of media. what we figured out now is the marketing team lost a very valuable asset, which was the video content part of it.
Yeah.
And we figured we needed to fix it, which is what we're doing now. So the marketing team will now produce video content as well. We know it. Like, we don't have to start from scratch.
Yeah.
But there are two different goals there, and that's kind of like my own. Going to the first question you asked me, that's kind of like my own. Hey, like, can we be content creators? Can we be just a media company? That's what this separate branch is. But this one still needs the video content, and we sort of abandoned it for a few months.
Honestly, I think that's the reason why I asked you, because I know there's a lot of friction. I've experienced this as well, which is if you're generating content you're doing thought leadership, you're building authority, and so on. Sometimes the decisions that you need to take are not going to align with what the growth team wants, what the sales group wants to achieve, and so on. So I do think, at least in my naive mind right now, that having it as a separate group with their own priorities and so on might be less friction and get you to where you need to get. How is the split? Did it cause a bit of friction? People upset that they did. I suppose that's why you're getting the marketing team their own video content capability, because I suppose people were a bit concerned and upset about the fact that you're taking this capability from them.
Yeah. The thing is, because it like there are clearly two different goals, right? I think marketing, now that we haven't done video as a source of marketing in a while, marketing sort of understood how valuable video was as a lead source, as a way to get in front of people, right?
Yeah.
So that's important. On the media side, I've become a guest host now on the Hustle, which is the HubSpot
Oh, really?
YouTube channel. So like we ran into these things, and I'm really excited about those collaborations. But it happens because we've started to make content that's much more broad. Like our video this week is how dating apps ruin dates, which is, yes, it's at the intersection of tech and society.
Yeah.
And it's a really excited. I have, like, literally here at the hotel, I have the last. I'm finishing the cut of a video called Austin, a blue bubble in a red state, which is tech and startups that live in Austin, but again, expanding that to society. Like, I am passionate about those topics. I love shoot those videos that we shoot on location, where there's like a research involved and meeting a lot of people. I absolutely love doing that.
So you're doing a bit of a mini quasi documentary with each of these. I would definitely call them documentaries. Like Paddle also has a couple of them, like really nicely produced. I also liked is it now called Company Forensics? I also like Company Forensics. You're doing quite well with that in terms of the visual narrative of it. By the way, how do you do that? Is that your, sorry, let me just stop this. Is that your media company that is that your media team that does that? Do you hired people that are animators?
No, like we
designers?
Mostly in-house. We do it.
In-house.
I mean, I'm Costa Rican, so we operate. A big part of our team is down in Costa Rica, and just hiring editors and animators in-house is much cheaper than it would be for another company. I hire them out of the school that I went to, so that makes things easier, and also, like I think we have a big advantage, which is that the work is very exciting, right? Honestly, the startup one, we understand that the startup one-on-one videos where we're just explaining some really tough startup concept, that's for a video production person who studied film. That's like, yeah, okay, it's a job. But if we're making these, I think sometimes very powerful documentaries, like that's a job that they love.
Yeah.
So yeah, I very much feel part of the media team inside the organization. Takes me, I try to be strict in only spending 2 brain days, 2 days where my brain is fully dedicated to media, so that I can spend the other 3 days running the rest of the company.
Yeah, I think that's a great approach. I've been doing that as well because I'm not available in these 2 days. I'm focusing on this and just because otherwise just it becomes chaos. You slip deadlines with this and that. So yeah, I've been preaching that to a lot of people, including my team. At one point, it's like just prioritize days just block your calendar completely for that day and focus on delivering that.
Yeah, and my co-founder complained very rightfully so the other day, because for a good part of this year, I'd say for the first 6 months of this year, my brain was 80% on media, on this media R&D branch. And yeah, I maybe neglected some of the rest of my duties, running the rest of the business, or stuff that they need me in the marketing team, especially. So like, yeah, like I think that I gave it my almost 100% to media for 6 months. I think that we make some great strides, but that's still not the main revenue source for us. So yeah, I should readjust time.
Is it a big contributor though? Do you find it so? As in, does your YouTube channel bring you enough leads and customers to your business?
It's not as many as we get from SEO. So SEO is still the biggest contributor. YouTube is definitely the second. But media, right? Remember this media branch we're talking about. Media is making videos about the social impact of startups moving to Austin, Texas. So that content doesn't sell Slidebean that much. Like it gives us some brand awareness, but it's not converting into leads.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I did find that creating content that relates to people and people enjoy consuming does bring you some word to mouth business, but it's never going to be as powerful as you're creating your strategic funnels in a sense. But it's also awesome to hear that you're basically spending part of your time working on stuff that you really love. And it doesn't matter, it's broad topic. As in, from a negative point of view, I don't think so. Like, at the end of the day, you're going to have a larger audience and it will contribute towards the media team generating their revenue goals, because all of a sudden there's more interest around the content, so you can package it better, you can generate revenue from advertisers and so on. So I'm sure that when you told your head of marketing or lead person of marketing, when the media team was still in their marketing, that you're going to start a series talking about general companies and tech documentary, they're like, ping, okay, that's the alarm bells. How are we going to link this to what we're doing as a business? It's normal. It's normal for someone that's in charge of the successful growth of a company to have a bit of concerns when it comes to this
and the concern was right. The concern was right. So we've had to backtrack a little bit on that, so that marketing gets. I think YouTube is, or video content in general today, is something that a lot of companies are trying to move into. I can see that trend, and I get founders that I know and marketing people that I know. Like I get the question often, say, "Hey, we're trying to do this. How did you guys figure it out?" Especially because it's more differentiated. There's a moat around it on video content. It's more expensive, but at a certain stage, and for especially for SaaS companies where customer value is high, where lifetime values are high, it's often justified versus, say, paying for a booth at an event, which ends up costing a lot more money
Yeah.
and you end up impacting 300 people.
So speaking of, we're at SaaS Talk in Dublin. Did you ever had a booth here with Slidebean?
No, we've never done booths, part because our tickets are small. Like, our customer value is small. Like, Slidebean is $200 a year. So there's never a way to get a positive ROI on a booth. If we ever did it, it'd be a brand awareness play.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So you've not got into the expo game
No,
until
I'm
now.
not in the expo game.
Okay. I want to chat about your background again. Again, why am I saying again? I think it's because I saw a couple of videos about you and your journey and so on. How did you get into this? How did Slidebean start?
Yeah,
Were you with your co-founders from the beginning?
yeah, So I think that good product ideas come from sort of like a problem that you stumbled upon at work, right? So if you're working on something, if you maybe a corporate job, but you find this problem, this pain point, I think that and you stumble upon that with the context of being kind of like understanding the industry a little bit and so on. I think that those make up for the better product ideas versus sitting down and just saying, hey, like, I should build a start about something. So about what, right? So yeah, the idea for Slidebean came like that. I had another company, and we did a startup accelerator. That was back in 2012. My first startup experience, my first time living in the States. And
where was it in the States?
In New York.
That you moved?
In New York. So we did Dream It in New York, which was my first, honestly, crash course into startups. I didn't know anything about startups before that. And we're sitting at this office, like a classic accelerator, like 15 companies in the same like raw office space, right? Like disorganized, no decoration, nothing, just like a raw office space that only existed for like 4 months. And I saw 100% of those companies struggle to make their pitch deck. They were struggling with the design. They were struggling trying to adjust the wording. So much of the manager's time of the accelerator, the managing partners, was going on kind of like adjusting slides on the pitch deck. It was all around the pitch deck for demo day. And I felt the advice was coming a little bit from all over the place. They would write and rewrite this thing again and again. So that's kind of like the inspiration. At that point, I think we were onto something in the sense that was definitely a tough thing. But the way I interpreted it then was it's a design problem. It's a software problem. The building a pitch deck. It's PowerPoint doesn't make it easier to design a good deck. I think that that's still true, but that's not the only problem. There was also a sort of like synthesizing problem. Hey, like, how do we get from everything that's in my head as a founder to these 15 slides? There's a time problem. It's like I'm busy. I want to be running the company and generating revenue, not making these slides. So there are a lot of problems associated with the pitch deck, and I run into those. And then gathered Vinny, who's my friend since elementary school, and Jose, who was their CTO. And sort of we sat down together and we're like, hey, like, here are some ideas we've all thought of. Like, let's pick one that we're passionate about, because we'll be working on this for the next many years, 10 years now.
So did you, just to make sure I understand, you seen, was the catalyst you seeing that there was this challenge with building pitch decks, slide decks, and you brought the crew together, hey, how about this? Or the three of you decided, we want to build a business, a product business together. Let's figure out what ideas.
No, no,
What
no.
was the catalyst?
Yeah, the idea. So the idea came there. I was doing my other startup then, which went out of business. So I'm like, okay, so that company died. So like, okay, what am I gonna do? Am I gonna get a job, or I'm gonna start something different? And yeah, so I gathered this new team, um, and we sort of I sort of like, I don't want you guys to just like build my idea. I don't think that's the way you form good rapport with your co-founders. Hey, I have this idea. You're building it for me,
Yeah.
right? That doesn't work. So it's, hey, are you passionate about this problem the same way as I am? Um, and if not, let's bring other ideas and build something. But yeah, we all three of us were passionate about the presentations problem. At that point, we sort of expanded it into a problem with presentations, which is a much harder problem to solve. I see the pitches, pitch.com, and some of our other competitors. So many competitors have gone out of business in the last. Paste, which was this, I don't know if you remember Paper, which was this really cool like note-taking app on your phone, which is beautiful, like beautiful kind of like watercolor design, and
Yeah.
they made a presentation product called Paste, and then they got acquired by
I think I remember that.
WeTransfer. We were
Yeah.
very
Oh,
scared.
yes.
We were very scared about Paste because it was a beautiful piece of software, with backing of a huge company. But they closed it like a month ago. So yeah, the presentation space is a much bigger problem to tackle. I don't know if, I mean, after trying that, presentations as general, right,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
just pitch decks. After trying to solve that or trying to compete there, I don't know. I don't know if anybody can, because you're competing against free essentially.
Yeah. Google Slides. Is there any other that's a big player?
Yeah, I think Google Slides and Google Slides is probably going to eat away at Microsoft bit by bit. Um, yeah, I think the convenience of the Google ecosystem, the Google Office, right? It's like Office, and I
Yeah.
think that's the thing. Google is the only other company that's built an actual Office suite that has the equivalent of all the others, and I think that the integration between those two is valuable. So one thing we learned in the presentation space is that if you're just a presentation platform like Prezi or like Pitch, you're always going to be an add-on.
Yeah.
You're always an extra expense to the company. And it's like, hey, we have this, but we're paying for this one. Yeah, because it's better, but it's an extra expense. And when they have to cut stuff, they might cut you. Whereas the
Exactly.
Office suite is essential. You need it, and you can't live without it.
And it's one price, and it's well, I've learned that, that saying, I've learned that the hard way. I learned that the easy way, the reverse of that, because I built a business in the Atlassian world,
So that.
which meant that our apps, our plugins, were being installed in your Jira, and it's easier to just install a plugin and have it on the same bill. You don't have to go through the same procurement process. You don't have to go through through additional procurement process. You don't have to go through security checks and so on if you're aligned by what Atlassian is. So I'm like, the amount of times that I had demo calls and they took the decision to go with our app versus a standalone because they didn't want the headache of going through that procurement process. And I'm like, yes. So if I would recommend anyone that doesn't want the procurement headache with some of these companies, go be part of an existing ecosystem. Might be easier. Right. So you said that you graduated school as a digital animator. I'm curious, what were you using? What software were you using?
Oh, Maya is what I learned in school.
Maya. Interesting. Have you ever used 3D stuff like Cinema 4D and all of these other bits?
Yeah. So I think the major player, Blender, Cinema 4D, and 3D Max are probably the biggest Maya competitors. Now, Autodesk owns, they own 3D Max now. I think they didn't used to when I started school. Yeah, Maya is definitely the most expensive of the four, um, but that's what I got taught in, and I can't. I don't want to relearn.
Did you apply that, or do you apply any of that knowledge anymore in
Yeah,
Slidebean?
it's funny because a lot of my curriculum was around 3D animation, not so much in 2D animation. I think there are some basic animation essentials that sort of translate over, uh, but very recently, as we started making these documentaries, like the on location documentaries, I figured how do we make like we inevitably when you're making maps, when you have to make a map on YouTube, you're inevitably competing with Johnny Harris. Like he owns the map game, right? So how do you make a map that's better than a Johnny Harris map, uh, right? And this was around the time when my brain was mostly dedicated to media. I'm like, fuck, I need to make a better map system, and I honestly think we did. Came up with this workflow, which is honestly not very well documented anywhere, and we probably should document it somewhere. Where we use like world geodata and apply that to the 3D models as a topography map. You can find maps like that online, but mostly are like single frame renders. But nobody's doing video around these maps. So we did it. We figured it out. I have one rendering upstairs right now, literally for the Texas video. Um, yeah, so that's me using Maya, like actually making something useful out of whatever thousands of dollars I paid for school.
Why Maya and not go Unreal Engine?
I don't know how to use Unreal Engine. I have no idea.
Oh, right. Okay. So it's. But do you reckon it would be any transferable skills there between
I'm
the
sure. I'm sure. Man, I don't have a whole lot of time to learn all this stuff, man.
Very true. Very
Yeah,
true.
I have to go with something that's quick. Yeah, that works. That doesn't require me to start from scratch.
Well, it's great to hear that now after. When did you finish school?
I got into school. I started school in 2006.
Okay, 2006.
So that's what, 20 years or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that you're still applying the same software. Is Maya? Do you feel that Maya has been innovating and stuff, or is it the same old, same old?
I mean, luckily for me,
It's the
there
same
are. I
old,
mean,
same
they
old.
haven't changed the interface that much. They've added a lot of new stuff. I remember, yeah, and 3D is a bit of a niche, so people have their own preferences about their workflows and where to model. I remember we used to model like the 3D models. We used to make them in some other software and then bring them into Maya. I think their modeling system got better. But yeah, luckily they didn't change it that much because I was like I had my like the school version. Last school version I touched was like 2010, and it was the school license. Right, so I had to buy this software for the first time in my life. Like now they have a subscription, of course. $300 a month, which is an expensive subscription.
300.
Uh-huh.
Wow. Well, I mean, it was a pretty expensive software.
Yeah, it was
so-
like $4,000 for the license, and you have to pay $50 extra for the rendering, for Arnold render. That's new. The renderer is new. Yeah,
That's a ton of money. They're definitely taking advantage of their brand brand name.
absolutely.
I wanted to backtrack on the conversation around teaming up with founders. So, two questions. First one is, why not go at it alone
As a
as a solo founder? When you're like, oh, all of these people have this pitch deck challenge, why team up with people versus you just doing it your own? And then follow-up question, why them?
Yeah, there's a question I don't get asked often, and I think I have a good answer for it. So I came up with this thesis, not thesis, but it's a way I sort of like relay this message when I'm talking to another founder, especially solo founders, which is that what are the skills needed to build X business? Let's take, I don't know, a social media platform. what are the skills needed to build it? Well, you obviously need an engineer. You need product skills, both in engineering and in UX design, right? So any social media platform needs to have a really slick interface, like a really intuitive and slick way to interact with it. You absolutely need a PR/marketing persona brain, right? Because this thing needs to grow organically, almost virally. You can't necessarily afford to do a lot of paid acquisition. You can't pay to acquire a user, right? It needs to grow on its own. You need obviously you need an operations person that runs the company, and you need a CEO persona that raises money and needs to do it every 18 months, because this thing is not gonna make money for a while.
Yeah.
So I think the ideal founding team should have all those skills, should have people who are really good at those things, outstanding at those things. They should be the co-founders. Why? Because you're not going to have a lot of money for a while to hire an outstanding person in any of those departments, right? If you raise a little bit of money, your first money in, you're not going to convince some some expert CMO or some expert CTO to quit their day job and come work at this thing. It's too risky, right? So it's not a money problem. It's a motivation problem. And I think investors also understand that, where they want to see those teams formed. So like, again, collecting all these skills. So in this case, if you can compress the skills to build this social media platform maybe into three personas, right? The CEO, who also knows a little bit about marketing, the backend engineer, and maybe a front end person that also comes up with the sleek UX. Or you can redistribute that and have the CEO persona be technical, and the fundraising person, and then just add like a designer and then a marketing persona, right? So it's very hard to find all of those skills in the same person. Not impossible, but very hard.
Yeah.
Now, on the solo founder question, yeah, so maybe you are the founder that has all those skills in the same brain, but do you have the time to do all those things, right? I think that at some very quickly in the company journey, like the CEO part of the brain needs to be full out fundraising, and if that same brain is the one that needs to keep up with the product, then that becomes complicated. Or if that's the same persona that needs to do marketing, right? So I do believe that separating, not only so in part because of work time, separating that is valuable, but also honestly as a motivation and it's sort of like human sanity aspect. Like, yeah, like I've gone through some rough patches. I've lost my motivation many times. I've been seriously unproductive for 2-3 weeks where I'm confused or just not very motivated, and that's when there's this human value of your co-founders kind of stepping in and either taking tasks from you or kind of helping you get back on track. I think there's also a sanity check as to like ideas. Like sometimes I come up with shit it's not a great idea, and
Yes.
and I'll go and pitch it to my co-founders, and they'd be like, "Man, I don't think that's a great idea," and I respect their opinion well enough to say like, "Okay, fine, I'll rethink it, repitch it, and if it still doesn't work, then yeah, it doesn't work."
So are you like, oh man, I can resonate with a lot of what you said. I completely agree with everything. I've learned that when teaming up with Nikki, my partner, about the fact and realize before teaming up with her that we need to balance skills, because otherwise you get burned down immediately, and also you feel less guilty, and it's less guilty about not, like, for example, like you said, you're off or something like that. You have someone there with you. You feel more resilient in a sense, confident again, and the confidence bit is quite important as well. Even this, because you can link confidence with what you just said about your co-founder saying that's a stupid idea, right? Because you know that if you're starting an initiative, if your entire founding or leadership team aligned to that, and they're not yes man, they're just they're literally on board with that, you're a lot more confident in what you're building. It's the same thing. The amount of time that I went and I was like, we should do this video content idea, it's amazing, and Nikki would sat there, look at me and think, that is the dumbest idea that I've ever heard. I was like, okay, let me. But when she said, when we talk things through, she's also a very analytical person. So she's never gonna jump like reflex wise and say, yeah, let's do it. No, she asks me follow-up questions until she's convinced. And I need that because I am chaos, complete chaos. Like if I have an idea now, I'm gonna start building it and implementing it. And then 3 months down the line, I'll be like, oh, it's not working. Bye. Experimentation is and R&D is a good thing, but I'm too much on the R&D and exploratory type of work. So her perfect combination, because she checks me, puts me in check with some of these things. But when we decide, yes, let's do this, it's a good idea. I feel that I can conquer the world because we're both in it. My question here would be is, do you consider yourself a chilled person when it comes to tougher conversations with your team? Because it's kind of like a follow-up to what you said, that if your co-founders say no, that's a bad idea, you respect their opinion, and okay, fine, I'll rethink it. Is it that easy for you, or do you have moments when you're like, whether with your co-founders or with the team, you might feel a bit disheartened or feeling blue about your co-founders not liking something that you put together and so on? How do you work? How do you function, basically?
No, I don't think that's the case. Like, yeah, like I'm chill enough about those things, where, where if I'm really passionate about an idea, like maybe I'll reframe it somehow, and I'll go back to the drawing board, right? And is it the way I pitched it, or is it that it's a bad idea altogether? And eventually if it's a bad idea, I was like, oh, yeah, maybe it's a bad idea. I'll just scratch it. No, I don't think we've had any like heated arguments, or I've had like motivation losses when my ideas get rejected. I don't think that's the case. I think that in our company story, I think the certain separation of responsibilities with co-founders was also essential, right? I think that we struggled a little bit at the very beginning when all three of us wanted to have hands-on product, because it was too many people with three opinions are too many opinions on some button size or menu design.
Yeah.
It's too many opinions, and I don't think it was working. So we sort of learned our lessons there and moved away from that to give each one of us some independence and some authority in what we do best, right? Some final say in what we do best. So that was useful too.
Yeah. I've struggled with this as well in the early days, because when I started the company, I wanted to build products, and Nikki wanted to build products as well, and I basically had to sacrifice my desire to build products in order to make the business work. From two reasons. One, well, if we're both building products, who's taking care of the business, the financials, who's doing marketing and all of this stuff? And two, we have, you can never have the exact same taste, liking, and thoughts and attitude towards something. You use data as much as you can, right? Research, customer feedback, and so on. But when it comes to whether this button is this size or is positioned here, when you don't have that data, we're never going to be exactly the same. Some things you will, and you would agree, but some things you don't. So I had to step back and just let Nikki do her thing with product and not interfere, because I felt sometimes I was slowing her down, because I was like, FOMO. Oh, no, hold on. I'm doing all of this stuff here. Give me until tomorrow for us to have a meeting, to go through the designs and do this stuff. And then I realized, what on earth am I doing? I felt guilty. I was like, well, I'm
you become a bit of a
holding her
bottleneck,
back.
right?
Yeah. Very true. Do you get recognized often? Like in the settings like this in SaaS talk?
It happens. So my daughter, we were at Whole Foods the other day. She knows that I make videos and that they go on YouTube.
How old is your daughter?
9.
Okay.
So she understands that. So I mean, side note for the punchline of the story. So my dad used to play professional soccer. So he gets recognized a lot. So my daughter in school, like everybody knows that she is the granddaughter of this former soccer player, because Costa Ricans are crazy for soccer. So I always joke with my daughter. I'm like, I'm more famous than my dad. I'm much more famous than your grandfather. She's like, no way. Like everybody in school knows who my grandfather is. Like, no way, you're more famous. I'm like, I am, but okay, fine, don't believe me. So we were at.
It's like, to my internet friends, I'm more famous. Okay.
Exactly. So this is in Costa Rica, right? We live in Costa Rica, but we try to spend the summer or the winter holidays in New York. So we're in New York. I don't know when. Over the summer, and we were at Whole Foods, and this guy comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, do you run a YouTube channel?" And my daughter was around, and she's like, oh, you actually got recognized. It doesn't happen that often. I'd say a couple times a month when I'm in New York. But it's always weird. It's always I don't know. It's super cool. Like some random person on the street. Because I wouldn't like. I'm a big movie buff, and I'm sure I've walked past. I've actually walked past famous people, and I don't notice because I'm not looking at their faces.
Yeah.
Somebody's walking with me and says, "Hey, we just walked past." And the fact that they not only see my face but stop me and whatnot, I appreciate it. But yeah.
And in a setting like this, like SaaS talk, do you usually go on the expo floor and stuff, or just and do people recognize
in these places? Yeah, this is my audience, right?
Yeah, and do you when that happens, when people stop by and say, "Oh, I love your content. You do so much awesome stuff." Do you try to tie that into your business, potentially get leads for your business, or is it more, no, I don't want to force things?
No.
How do you
I think
usually
maybe
operate?
at the beginning
networking?
I tried. I think one thing I learned is getting people to take action on something, right? To go and sign up for something is a really big ask to get somebody to try something. Like even when you meet another founder, and I think that between founders, we've sort of understood this. When you meet other founders in a setting like that, and they ask, "Hey, what do you do? What does your company do?" I'm like, "We do this and that." Oh, okay, but you don't expect them to go and sign up for it right away. It's not like every conversation is a lead.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is. It's hey, I've been looking for a product like that, but unless that's the case, it's not going to happen. So yeah, I learned not to force it. I'd rather use that interaction to survey a little bit. Now that we sort of transitioned into new video formats and new topics, I always like to know like what they've been watching, what the algorithm has been pushing to them, what sort of persona they are. Are they a founder? Are they part of the marketing team? Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I do have at this point, because I go to the Atlassian summit that happens every year, and both me and my partner have been quite doing a lot of content in the ecosystem, so we do get recognized and greeted quite a lot there. And I've always kind of thought, I don't like that. I don't like selling, like cold selling and doing networking in order to sell. I always thought, I felt guilty. Maybe I should sell for my business or something like that. But I let it be. I don't want to force things
I think,
into
yeah,
existence in
I
a
think
sense.
asking for a sign up is a very, very, it's like too much of an ask for such a short interaction. Asking for a subscribe or like, hey, like, I made a video about this. I think that's more in line. Uh, yeah, like I was part of this conversation group the other day, and they were talking about some stuff that we covered in a video. Hey, like I made a video about this. Like we did a whole research. Maybe you find it useful.
Yeah.
So you're almost like giving them something rather than trying to turn them into your customers.
And how do you find um, asking for subscriptions? Like, for example, the good old, hey guys, we're 500 subscribers away from 10,000. Help us. Let's get there. We'll do a contest. How do you feel about that? Because the world is super split on that.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
there's two reasons. Because like one is like, oh well, you're begging for subscriptions, and it doesn't feel like it's coming from. It seems like you're chasing subscriptions. And then on the other side is like, no, you have an audience, incentivize them to to go out there and be your representatives in a sense, like be your advocates and subscribe and get others to subscribe. Where do you sit on that?
I don't think we've ever done kind of like asking for subscriptions. My argument against it, if I had to kind of take a side, it'd be that, and I think we've learned this a little bit. Um, Subscriber numbers mean less than what people often think. So they absolutely mean credibility. We get my emails get replied more to other YouTubers because we have almost 500,000 subscribers. So like, oh, like this is a big channel. They must know what they're doing, or they've been doing it for a while. So that is valuable. You get plaques in exchange for subscribers, but in the end, uh, subscribers don't mean views. I think that one lesson we learned in our case was when we started transitioning content, um, we messed up with the algorithm in a bad way, in the sense that we had we had built an audience around this very geeky technical startup content, like how does a convertible not work, how do equity splits work, how do stock options work for employees, um, and then we'd make 3 videos on company forensics, on why Skype died and why Zoom is so successful, and so on. And then we'd make another video on financial models. And the 3 people who watched the Skype video, they don't care. They don't give a fuck about the financial model stuff.
Budgeting and stuff.
So they and I actually with an interaction, I was at this YouTube conference last year, and one guy came up to me and with this exact reasoning, he said, "Hey, like I love watching your videos, but whenever you post videos that are so technical, I suddenly feel like your channel is not for me. Like you're not making content for people like me." And I took this to heart. After researching around it, I realized, yeah, like you sort of have to keep within your niche and your space, and that's something you learn by asking people.
So how did you solve this? Did you just remove the technical bit completely from Slidebean?
Yeah, so this is
YouTube
kind of what we were
channel?
talking about earlier. We stopped making the very technical videos,
Right. Okay.
and we only made broader videos.
The formula is, in a sense, you create content that people are searching for in order to start getting discoverability and start getting YouTube subscriptions and views and things like that. But then there's a fine art to transition into talking. YouTube algorithm will help you a bit and so on, but talking about things that aren't actively searched for, right? Maybe the what's it called? WeWork thing. People were looking for that because it was happening there. But when you talk about some other company that was in the past, died in the past, or whatever, people are not actively searching for that. So it's a bit of an art and a balancing act to basically start making content and still get the engagement that you were getting to the content that was SEO optimized in a sense.
Yeah, we did a course. I don't want to say by whom, because we've had a bittersweet relationship with the YouTube course.
Okay.
So I don't want to recommend it, but some good takeaways from that were the fact that you want people to binge your content, so you want content that sort of bridges into other videos, and that's important. And that the key to YouTube growth is not is not in search, but in understanding and working with the algorithm, right?
Yeah.
So you can only get so many views through search, the amount of searches for that keyword. That's where we started. We started with search. We would research.
That's how I found you.
Keyword volume on pitch deck, on the stuff that we cared about, and we started producing content around that. And we would even, there were some topics that we would not cover because there was, for example, a TED video about it. You can't compete with TED, so we're like, no, like that's not. They're gonna win that search. So let's go this way. Now now after so many years, I understand that if you come up with a really clever content idea, maybe you tie that with live events, maybe you tie that with some pop culture. The algorithm will unlock a number of views that's massively bigger than you will ever get through search.
Yeah.
But you sort of have to. For us, it's still a game of getting lucky, right? So our last forensics video was on Mattel. We got really unlucky on that video. Not that many people cared about it. Our audience is mostly male. Mattel is Barbie, so it did.
I'm surprised because Barbie movie and everything. I was expecting it to do really well.
Yeah, like we were following a formula and the format and a formula and picking the topic because it was tied to pop culture and whatnot, but just people didn't care about it. So yeah, it is a little bit of luck in a way, that topic selection. We've started doing this thing where we actually test the thumbnails before we make the video. So we make the thumbnail, some thumbnail ideas and title ideas, and we put those ads on Instagram just to see which one gets the best click-through rate. And if a topic doesn't get a certain amount of click-through rate, we just don't make the video.
Interesting. So that I found your secret. I know how you're successful on YouTube. I'll apply the same thing. So you're creating a variety of thumbnail options, and you're sharing it on.
Yeah, we put them on ads on Instagram.
On Instagram. And then whichever gets more clicks.
Yeah, So I think our
that's a really smart idea.
A minimum. Yeah, it's just applying like analytical stuff to something that's not so analytical, right? Like picking topics, but so 0.15% is our minimum click-through rate. If a topic doesn't get at least that, the video gets shelved. We don't make it, we don't shoot it, we don't write a script, we don't do nothing.
Yeah. But where do you send those people?
Just to the YouTube channel.
Right.
Okay. We just care if people want to click it. And then we started doing this honestly because we sucked at thumbnails. We were really bad at thumbnails for a long time. And we still have so many bad thumbnails up there because we haven't had time to update them. I think we've gotten better now after all these experimentation, because thumbnails are like this science and an art as well, right? Because so I think during this sprint I ended up making 50 different thumbnails, designing 50 different thumbnails. Some of them don't get made, videos didn't release, but just testing them out. So you eventually sort of learn, okay, if you format it like this, it gets more clicks. But if you test that on YouTube with a video launch, you only get one test a week or one test every other week. If you do it on Instagram through paid, it doesn't cost that much money, and you get your very quick answers literally on an A/B test. So it's always the same audience that gets the same thumbnails pushed.
That's a really smart idea. I'll clip this and send it to Nikki. Right. I want to ask you. I have one more question before before the ending ceremony. Um, what do you consider it to be the biggest failure of your career so far?
It took us so long to accept it, but we uh, again when we started, I mean, it is within Slidebean, this failure.
Mhm.
The premise was we're building a company that will be as big as Prezi. So like we're competing with PowerPoint. We're gonna dethrone PowerPoint. So that was a mistake. Not a big mistake. We quickly realized that that was going to be very hard. I think very naturally we pivoted into pitch decks as a side thing, and we did this early on. We sort of doubled down on pitch decks as the main purpose of this product that we were building, and that worked. I think the one thing we highly underestimate, and all the signs were there, but we sort of didn't read them right, was that this product was limited in how much it was going to grow. Because it's a high churn product, you'll need a pitch deck once every couple of years. A lot of companies don't get from one series of funding to the next one, so there's a high involuntary churn ratio in this product. It's a high churn product that we would get this story from our customers. They'd be like, "Hey man, like I love you guys. Thanks to Slidebean, I was able to raise money, but I'm canceling my subscription because I don't need you anymore."
Yeah.
Because we would see this for we would get this feedback for years.
That must be excruciating in
Yeah,
a sense.
and
You've helped people so much, you changed their lives, yet they don't need you anymore.
exactly. And for years, we tried everything. Like we cracked our heads at trying to fix this churn problem. When the real problem was this is not a sticky product, and we should have done something else. So luckily, luckily out of that, like thanks to that, or despite that waste of time, if you will, or not realizing this sooner. I'm saying that's the mistake. My mistake is not seeing these signs and making a much bigger pivot earlier.
Which means you've not invested, you walked a bit more, let's say, carefully, not going full beans on Slidebean. What? I just realized.
I didn't see it coming. No, it's like we should have understood this and say, hey, this product is not going to grow as the company that we set out to build was much bigger than what this product is going to give us. So let's either sell it quickly and do something else. We should have figured that out sooner. Now we figured it out, right? Too many years later.
Yeah.
And then we started doing what we should have done earlier, which was, hey, let's use the capital that we have, the revenue that we have to build something new. So like I'm coming in on 10 years. Like my LinkedIn is 10. I saw the 10 years as CEO of Slidebean. It's a long time.
10 years.
Yeah, a long time as a founder to still be the founder of a company that's so small, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I see this with my I was at the speaker dinner yesterday, and I see all these friends of mine who have huge companies. I don't want to say I'm jealous, but I'm like, hey, like, am I wasting my time trying to do this? And the reason why I don't feel bad about it is because now, like, my co-founders and I, we've used this platform to experiment on some things that otherwise we would have had to pay out of pocket or raise new rounds of funding, right?
Yeah.
So, also we were lucky enough that we hadn't raised a lot of venture capital. We only raised about $1 million total. So our investors are chill about the size of the company we are now, and about us using that money to experiment a little bit. So that's fine. Like I've essentially started like 4 different companies inside of Slidebean, right? There's the media thing and the recurring thing. So that's fine.
Well, you've had a decade of growing in a sense, right? Would it be fair to say that you've maximized your being as a professional, as a founder, as a creator across these 10 years? Because you know what? I've had the same guilt, and I look at other founders and I think to myself, why did I sell now? Like, look at all my buddies making like 10 million ARR or something like that. We grew to 1 million ARR. We could have grown a bit more before selling it. It's like, and I've been thinking about this. Oh, I've done so many steps. I should have done things a bit more aggressively and just aim for a big exit or aim for VC or things like that. But then I had to take a step back and say, did I do everything that I wanted over that period? Yes, I was a CEO. I've dealt with all of the product when I needed to. I dealt with security. I was a content creator. I've squeezed as much as I could in that setting as a content creator experience. I've lived my time over Jigsaw in the fast lane and as much as I could. And I wanted to ask you that as well. After a decade of Slidebean, do you feel like you've maximized your time in the areas that you wanted to?
Yes, I think like I still have to do like boring admin stuff, but yeah, not 100% of any job is fun, right? So the admin stuff is boring. We're having to deal with HR stuff is it's boring. But yeah, like I don't know if I'd be a YouTuber if it wasn't. I don't know if I would. I don't know if I had discovered this talent / passion for it if it wasn't for Slidebean. And honestly, like I always say that we cheated our way to YouTube because we built a YouTube channel on startup funding, on VC, not VC funding, but like on funding from our revenue, right?
Yeah.
Everybody else needs to start a YouTube channel. You can't afford fancy cameras if you're starting from scratch, right? You're shooting on your phone with basic mics. So like we cheated that a little bit so that we started a step ahead, and maybe if we didn't have that or fancy animation at the beginning or stuff that we were able to pay for, our channel wouldn't have been successful. So I'm very thankful for that. I don't think that it's been a waste of time. Again, the experience of kind of like developing new products from scratch is very fun. I don't know I don't know. Like 10, I want to say that I don't want to be working at Slidebean 10 years from now. That's absolutely clear to me. I probably want to be working at Slidebean 5 years from now. But I haven't. But I don't want to let go of the big, powerful medium that we've created.
Yeah.
And I probably don't want to start from scratch. People know my face, but if I'm a new channel with 10 subscribers, it is starting from scratch.
I don't think you start from scratch. I think I'm like, because I was aware of this as well, right? I started Misfit Founders. It was daunting to me because coming from a Atlassian users community partners world, now starting something that is broader, in a way kind of relating to your journey to talking about this technical stuff and then going broader. I'm going broader, I'm going founders, and it was daunting to me. Well, like I'm going from scratch, I built all of this audience, but then I realized that there's a lot of founders and a lot of aspiring founders that in my network that would be interested in this. And I didn't really start from scratch. Right? I start with that audience first. And I think it's probably the same for you. You can leverage and figure out some of the things that you want to do in the future that relate to your existing audience.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so ending ceremony. I have 3 flash questions for you.
Okay.
Let me just find. Don't look.
All right.
I have something for you, but don't look. Okay. Right. So, if you answer these questions correctly, you get a prize. Okay, no, I'm joking. The questions are not true or false or anything like that. But number 1, what is a quote that you live by?
I have it. Building a startup is a marathon, not a sprint. I don't know whose quote this is. Not
It's
mine.
very, very popular, very famous.
But yeah, I learned that. Not the hard way, but I had to confirm that.
Persisting is important. I think you probably, among all people, you know this best. Because, like you said, you've had a journey where you could have kicked the Slidebean can. It's going
Can of beans.
away. You could have kicked it, like you said. It's like, oh, doesn't have legs. Sell it, do something else. But you persisted, and I think it looks like you're in a really good place now. You've learned a lot, you've experienced a lot, and so persistence is the alongside luck is one of the most underappreciated trait, in a sense, because people say, but if I go aggressive and I do all of these tactics, I'm gonna get things done overnight. Most of the time, that's baloney. Like, you have to persist.
Yeah, and more than that, it's like I started the company sprinting, in the sense that I'd work 16 hours a day, and everything was in a hurry, and you can burn yourself out very fast with that. So like, prepare yourself as a founder for a journey that will take years, sometimes decades.
Yeah. A book that changed your life?
I mean, probably too cliche, but I remember when I read The Lean Startup, and it did change my perspective into business. I didn't go to business school, but I came with very old school business concepts. I think Lean Startup. I have a lot of books. I wouldn't say it is even my favorite book. It is just a book that changed my perspective of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the question. Like I have a favorite book, but I don't think has been the most impactful, which is Good to Great by Jim Collins. I love a lot of that, but that wasn't the most impactful bit. Right. And last question, what is a good habit that you advocate for?
I would say creating a strict division of work and life, which in my case has been weekends are almost completely untouchable. There is no work on weekends, almost under any circumstance. Which is kind of like this way to separate your brain from work. And yeah, like at some point, honestly, for years, I didn't feel like I needed it. I didn't feel like I needed to give my brain a rest. Yeah. Like I was thinking about growth strategies and how to get more customers. I was thinking about this all the time. And I feel that I was getting valuable outcomes out of this. But at some point, I've only gone through like one burnout time through Slidebean. And then I started doing that, which was, hey, like I'm gonna kind of pace myself and not work on weekends, and it's been fantastic. So like that separation. Now it gives me my family. Like I try to log off at a certain time. Yeah. So I'd say that like, I don't know if it's your weekends or your Fridays or your late nights or whatnot, but just figure out a time where you don't think about work. And if your brain ends up going to work, which is very common, find an activity that stops you from doing that.
Yes, and I would say that's quite important, because I know people that'll be like, well, I don't have a personal life. Like my life is my work, right? But you have to find that activity that you can do to diversify your thinking and your state of being, because that very often that helps you get out of the rut, right? Yeah, and for me, it's like my family, Mickey, the puppies that I have, and doing things with them. That's very important, because otherwise, if I I would just be doing the same thing over and over again, and you just get stuck. And yeah,
absolutely.
Right, you answered correctly all three questions, so you get a member's badge. This
oh man, this
coin.
That's insane.
You are guest number 13. That's why the 13 there. And on the other side, you have the Misfit
Oh
Founders
man, this is
logo.
great memento.
So, and it's
Awesome, man.
also like
Thanks.
a stand
Yeah, it stands
bit,
like this.
so you can put it in your
I love it.
somewhere.
Thanks, man.
Awesome. And
Thanks for having me.
yeah, thank you for the conversation. It was amazing. You speak with so much passion about your entrepreneurship journey, your content and media journey, and Slidebean. It was a must. So I had to make this happen this week. So thank you so much for
Thanks
joining.
for having me again, and thanks to anybody listening all the way through now. It's been like an hour or something, 1 hour and a half.
Yes.
Cool. Thanks.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me.